Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Wednesday Wisdom. My name is JB Hilliard and these are short video snippets designed to answer questions you may have about estate planning, probate, or maybe there are other legal concerns that may be impacting your households. And while my intent is to publish these videos at least every other week, but more so every week, as I've mentioned before, life just keeps on life, and so please forgive me for not being more consistent here. But we want to resume where we left off toward the end of July with Sarah and her bakery and her continuing discussions and considerations on what to do with the bakery. Basically, she owns this bakery, and her concern is who to pass it on to, who to pass this business on to, this business legacy on to, either her daughter Emma or her longtime employee slash bakery manager Mike. And so where we last left off was an introduction or an initial discussion on buy-sell agreements. So she and Mike have been in discussions about drafting a buy-sell agreement where he would basically buy the bakery from Sarah. And this gives Sarah actually it gives both of them a couple different options in doing this. Sarah of course doesn't want the bakery doors to close should she retire. Say that 5 times fast. Should she retire or become disabled and is no longer able to work, or due to her unexpected death. But she doesn't want the legacy to end with her. And so where Mike comes in, he wants to take over the business. He enjoys the business. He's helped build the business. And so a buy-sell agreement helps make that whole process possible. Now, Mike knows the business inside and out, so he's a good candidate for being the buyer. Which is why they're having these discussions in the first place, because Sarah doesn't want the bakery business to get into the wrong hands by just having maybe a provision in her estate plan, say, for the heirs to just sell it once she passes away. She wants a little more control over the process now, as much as she can control it. And so a buy-sell agreement drafted now, while we have able and willing participants, help Sarah to have control of that part of her narrative. And so with that said, they come up with a structure where the buy-sell agreement will basically be triggered by 3 main events: either Sarah retiring outright, either Sarah becoming disabled, or either Sarah passing away. Now, there are some other triggers that could be built into your own buy-sell agreement, but these are just sort of the common ones that we see in these types of arrangements. And so we talked before about business valuation just a little bit, so that's all a part of it. But where we left off was how we are going to fund this transaction, and more specifically, how Mike is going to fund this transaction. And so Sarah considers a life insurance policy to be able to provide the funds for Mike when that time comes for him to buy the bakery outright. And so Mike has then, or buys, a life insurance policy on Sarah, and that makes Mike the owner as well as the beneficiary, and he pays the premiums. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with these types of insurance policies, you can't just get an insurance policy on anyone out there. So the person you're insuring has to approve or has to give their approval or authority for you to insure them. So no one can take out a policy on me without my knowing. And if that's the case, that's some shady business, and we don't do that. So Mike and Sarah have this discussion. Sarah agrees to being on the policy, and Mike, as I mentioned, pays the premium. So once Sarah passes away, the payout, the life insurance proceeds are given to Mike, and then he uses these funds to buy the business. So that's all a part of that buy-sell agreement. Those details flesh out in that buy-sell agreement. Now, there are other things to kind of think about when you're doing this for yourself, for your business. Now, what if Sarah just decides she's ready to retire? She doesn't want to do this anymore. She wants to do other things while she's able to. And so there can be some other provisions there where the buy-sell agreement will detail the type of funding that could occur. So what had happened was I inadvertently stopped my camera instead of checking my time on the video recording. So I want to end with this. We will explore some of the other options that Mike and Sarah are discussing as far as what could happen, or the funding options as far as what could happen if Sarah just wants to retire, or if she becomes incapacitated and can't run the business anymore. So with that said, as always, I thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.